I wanted to take a second to talk about my mental health and talk about my ADHD, depression, anxiety, and what I've been doing to help for them. I want to put an obvious disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician of any sort. I'm not a pharmacist. I don't have any professional training on medications or medical diagnoses or psychological, anything like that. So this is just my personal experience, my personal thoughts, and I don't want you to take anything I say as medical advice. If you have any questions or you're thinking that this might be relatable information or ideas to you, then you should take that thought to your doctor and talk to them about it, and don't just go by what I say. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I have ADHD. There's no like super cure or anything for ADHD, but there are a lot of medications to try if you have it. And the same with depression and anxiety. To me, a cure means like one and done, or maybe two and done type of thing, where you have some kind of a treatment and you're fine after that. Well, what my therapist told me when I was diagnosed with ADHD is that ADHD and depression and anxiety are like kind of a triad. So you can picture them as a triangle, maybe with like a wheel around it, if you're good with visuals. And they kind of feed each other and send you a little bit spiraling sometimes. Figure out where that triangle started and what is causing what, like what came first. A lot of times that's depression, according to my therapist. So we started there, and we started working on my depression for a really long time. It helped a lot. I wasn't on medication for a long time for my depression, and I still felt depressed, I still felt anxious, and I still felt ADHD. They were just lessened with therapy, and I felt more empowered, like I was taking control of the situation and doing something for myself to improve myself and better myself. It was also really important for me to treat my mental health because I want to set an example for the kids. I want them to feel like they can also treat their mental health, and that it's just a thing. Just, you know, depression is just like having allergies, you know, you have it and you gotta take care of it to take care of yourself. After a long time in therapy, I think probably about a year or so, I decided to try medication. I went to a psychiatrist in hopes to treat my ADHD because I've always felt like that is what causes my depression. I went to a psychiatrist, and she would prefer to treat my depression first. She said it seems more severe and like it may be the cause of everything else. I started on antidepressants. I took a couple different ones. I won't go into super detail, so that was not good, and I needed to do something different. My therapist moved away. He moved to the Seattle area, which is a minimum of 2 hours to get there from here, even though we're only probably like 50 miles. It's Washington. I tried a different therapist who I didn't super jive with, actually. We got along on the surface and we mostly just chatted, and I went ahead and kept her for quite a while. Even though I didn't feel like it was super effective therapy, I felt like she was kind of a nice person to talk to. I could run everything by her and she understood. And it was just, you know, talk therapy basically, but not really any work on myself. Not any real work anyways. Eventually I had to switch therapists because I went in and had a really poor experience with her. She was having an off day, so I was also having an off day, so it was a really bad timing thing, and she was feeling really foggy that day, and told me I might need to therapeutize myself that day because she was out of it. It wasn't until I thought about it a lot that I was really hurt about it, and I called the facility and I told management that it happened. In February, we got a diagnosis for my son, which I haven't really shared yet. I'm not like opposed to sharing it. I just want to make sure I talk to him about it first, and he's really young. So But anyways, we were trying to figure out what to do for him to help him out and to get him into what types of appointments he would need. And Leslie was having more and more severe back pain, and she was passing out a lot. Again, that's a different video for a different day. I am working from home trying to manage these two kids because I kept the kids home because I didn't want them to catch COVID because they put things in their mouths all the time due to sensory needs, and I cannot talk them out of it. It's just kind of who they are. So I didn't want them in daycare putting everything in their mouth, especially while COVID was so new and my parents are so vulnerable. My dad especially, I was worried about because he had a stroke, and that was last summer, and he's still recovering from that. And you know, if he got sick, it would be really, really bad, and he would have a hard time communicating what his needs were because he has aphasia. Eventually, with the pressure of everything, I needed to go down in hours to get all of our medical needs met. And I told my boss that, and this was around the same time that she wanted us to spend half of our hours in the office, which I was still not comfortable bringing the kids to daycare. There was no sort of handle on this yet. There was kind of like the phase thing had started, but no real idea of what was next. And I mean, we still don't really, but we kind of do have an idea of what helps and what's next. And so I'm a little bit more comfortable in general, but still scared. I told them I need to have 20 hours. I can't work 40 hours anymore. I prefer to work them all from home, and this is why. I explained everything that's going on. They said no. They said, we have your position, which is 40 hours available, or we have a 30-hour position available, and no matter what, half your hours need to be in the office. And I told them that doesn't work. That's still too much time. You know, and at that point I'm thinking, well, I could probably figure out ways to work half my hours in the office as long as I only had 20 hours, because that would only be 10 hours in the office, and I could figure that out. I could figure out some childcare, blah, blah, blah. We argued about it for a while, back and forth by email, and eventually they said I could have 2 more weeks to work if I put in my letter of resignation. And I said, I'm not quitting. That's not what I want. I don't want to quit. I want to work 20 hours. I need to work 20 hours. This is medical, you know, I have medical needs here for my family. And within a week or so of that, I was locked out of everything when I tried to log in. And I got an email that basically said to bring in my keys and pick up my stuff. That's kind of a side story that I needed you to understand that that's kind of where I was at with my job loss and being home. But now I am able to focus a lot more on my mental health and take care of myself. It's been really wonderful. I've been able to have several appointments with my psychiatrist and get some new meds to try. So now I'm managing my ADHD a little bit better, and it's helping me manage everything else a little bit better, which that's where I need to go, is a med appointment. So now I'm finally trying something called Adderall, which, if you've never heard of it, is a stimulant, and it's really I guess well monitored. They didn't want to try that first because of that, so I was on several other things before that. But I think it's going to work out really well, and I'm going to go talk more to my therapist or my psychiatrist about it today. Not 100% sure where I left off, but I think I was talking about where I was about to go, which was to see my psychiatrist for a med appointment, and that went really well. She's really great. I feel like I finally found somebody who listens to me. It's really important in your search for good mental health treatment is to have someone that listens to you, but it's also really important to listen to your doctor. So it's kind of hard to find a balance. Like, I saw one psychiatrist for, I think, I don't know, probably about a year. I saw her every couple of months, sometimes a little more frequently, sometimes a little bit less frequently, but I went a gap of time without seeing her because she had a baby, and then I went back to see her when she came back, and she was the one helping me through a lot of my med stuff, but never actually put me on Adderall, which is what I'm taking now. She really, for sure, felt like all my issues were basically caused by depression, because depression can feed anxiety, and anxiety can look a lot like ADHD. I wanted it to be true. I wanted to just take an SSRI and be okay, because a lot of people seem to be able to do that. But it was not working. Eventually, I wasn't able to see that doctor anymore. Right around the time that I stopped going to therapy there, I stopped seeing her too, because they were at the same facility, so they sent me a letter that was like, you're not showing up for therapy, so goodbye, basically. But at my current primary care provider, I found another psychiatrist, like at the same facility, so that's important. Continuity of care is everything sometimes. I feel like I'm just rambling because there's so much to say. I guess the point is, it takes a really long time to figure out your mental health sometimes, to figure out and get to a balance where you feel okay. And sometimes you'll feel like you maybe are okay, but then you realize you're kind of just, you put a band-aid on something. Sometimes just that alone takes a year, more than a year. That is a really unfortunate part about mental health. I feel like I'm finally getting somewhere. We did change my dose. For those that are super interested in that type of thing, I take one 15 milligram in the morning and a half a pill in the afternoon. Mine probably wore off in the past hour or so. I kind of like felt it. It's really weird. Like, I go from kind of goal-oriented and get projects finished oriented to, oh my gosh, all these projects. So it's like really weird to feel your brain switch between the two of those, but that's what the medicine does. So if you have ADHD and you're wondering what a stimulant feels like, trying it for the first time, that's what this one feels like to me. So if that's helpful for you, that's awesome. I think probably everybody has experienced having like too many tabs open on your computer. An ADHD person does that just like any other person, but probably times two at least. And all of the tabs that are open, none of them are completely finished. So like a neurotypical person might open a link in another tab because they're in the middle of something on the first tab. But they finish that first tab before they go to the next tab. Or they might have one tab open that's playing music, and one tab open that's what they're working on, and one tab open that's researching what they're working on. Something like that. An ADHD person, and this is just tabs, but it applies the same way to like housework and job, like your job and all of this stuff. But an ADHD person will have something that they're working on, and then it will link to something else, and they'll open that something else, and they will try to go back to the first thing, and then they'll get to kind of a stopping point of that first thing, and they'll say, okay, I still need to check this out in this other tab, and they'll go check this out in that other tab, and then they remember like, oh shoot, I was gonna look up a recipe for that thing, I'll put that in another tab just so I don't forget, and like you go and you Google that thing, and then you're like, oh shoot, this one looks really yummy, I have to look at that, and you click that open even though you still have the first two tabs open, mind you, and maybe you have another tab open playing music, because who can pay attention to anything without music on, and then you've got that recipe open, and you go, shit, like all these things look amazing together, and there's this one thing that I'm missing, and I don't know where to get it. I wonder if they sell it at Walmart. So then you open another tab and see if it's at your store, at your zip code. And oh yeah, I was going to put in an order at Walmart for such and such. I better do that while I'm here. So while you're there, right? Because you're not really at Walmart, but while you're there, you put a bunch of shit in your cart that you know that you need to buy, and then you're like, oh, what was I doing? Why was I here? I don't even have money right now. Like, I can't buy this stuff. So that stuff just sits in your cart, and you like have to backtrack like 5-10 different steps to see where you started on the internet in the first place, and you're like, oh shit, I was working on this thing. Like, the only reason I'm here is because I just remembered I had a recipe. So then you're back to like the third tab you opened or something, trying to finish that, and you're like realizing like, oh, I only opened this tab because I was in the middle of that one. And then you go and you look in that one, and you're like, oh, I better finish this. Like, I got to a good stopping point, but I probably should finish this or else I'll forget. And meanwhile, this really cool thing in your brain happened where you're like, oh, I already shopped for all those things that I needed, even though you never actually checked out because you don't have money. And your brain is like, I have all the ingredients for that recipe I was going to make because you went shopping. And so in your brain, tomorrow, that's your dinner plan. And in your brain, you have finished the secondary tab that you opened, even though you really only looked at it for a minute before you realized that you had a recipe that you wanted to look up. But you never actually finished looking at that other tab. So, but you're back on that first tab, and you're finishing that job, and you feel pretty good about it, and you get to the end of it, and holy shit, you look at the clock, and you have been sitting at the computer for literally like 4 hours. You're hungry, you have to pee really bad, you're doing the potty dance, and you're thirsty, and it's like really late, and you're like, what happened? Where was I? What is going on? And just with the medication, like, none of that would happen. No. I'd see that link, I would, like anybody else, might open a new tab, but continue working on the first thing. And I might open it in a new tab and bookmark it and close the tab. I'm going to finish that job first. And that's all I've noticed so far in the first, like, I don't know, week and a half. I could go on, but I've already been yammering for 8 minutes with, like, the wrap-up part of my video. But the best advice, the very best advice I could tell you is to start with therapy. You have shit you don't even know you need to work through, and you need to go to therapy. 100%. You do. Yes, you. Wouldn't it be great if we were all trying to be better people? That's how I see therapy, is like you are trying to help your brain perform better. Whatever that means for you, that's what therapy's about. So that's the best place to start, in my opinion. Just trying to think if there's anything else. I guess I should add, I am super, super broke. Because, you know, not having a job does that. There are all kinds of, like, supports right now because COVID, but unfortunately not a lot of them, like, fill your gas tank. There's a lot of, like, places to get free food, free masks. There are vouchers to get dish soap, you know, things like that. That stuff's been really helpful, and I'm on TANF. That gets us like $700 a month. Not even, just under that actually, which helps pay a little bit of our bills, but it doesn't even fully cover our rent. For rent this month, I've only paid $100 so far, and I have to figure it out. We're starting up a business, and we're revamping our YouTube channel, and it's almost freelance type work right now, but it's going to be its own company. Planning to get our business license and write out a business plan and everything. But Rare Reflections Media Solutions. It's not really like 100% set up yet, but if you would like to give us some business, we would love to help you out and work something out, even if it's a trade, even if all you can do is like maybe fill our gas tanks. We are for hire, is what I'm trying to say. Had to plug my own company, right? Okay, until next time.